Good evening. This regular meeting of the Socorro ISD Board of Trustees will come to order. The date is Wednesday, January 22nd. The time is 6:02, and we have a confirmed quorum. Thank you for joining us for this meeting, both in person and online via our YouTube stream. The full recording of the meeting will be available on YouTube and archived through the board website, where viewers have the option of watching the meeting with closed captions translated in multiple languages. Gracias por acompañarnos en esta reunión tanto en persona como en línea a través de nuestra transmisión de YouTube. La grabación completa de la reunión estará disponible en YouTube y se archivará a través del sitio web de la Junta, donde los espectadores tienen la opción de ver la reunión con subtítulos traducidos a varios idiomas. One of our outstanding students from Montwood High School will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Junior Mandana Kargar is determined to take advantage of every opportunity related to STEM that comes her way. As an aspiring neurosurgeon, Mandana has participated in science fairs since elementary school to pursue her passion and to gain valuable knowledge and skills in science and research. In January, Mandana and her teammate qualified for the regional science fair with their project on brain disorders. Mandana has excelled in Montwood's Synergy 4 STEM program and is on track to graduate with an associate degree from El Paso Community College next December. She is currently ranked second in her class. Additionally, Mandana serves as an officer in Montwood's HOSA student organization. Last year, her team reached the regional competition in HOSA with the Water Conservation Project. They were also recognized as a state finalist in the 2024 Samsung Solve for Tomorrow nationwide STEM competition for the same project. Mandana is grateful to her parents for their encouragement and support. She hopes to attend the University of Texas at Austin in 2026 and make a positive impact in the world through science. Congratulations, Mandana. We wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Please join us as she leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Continuing with our agenda, Superintendent's comments. Mr. Vasquez, please.
Good evening, President Nahara, members of the board, and members of the SISD community. And Mandana, great job today. Thank you for leading us in the pledge. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy new year and welcome you all to the first board meeting of 2025. I want to start off by congratulating Montwood High School for earning the National Certificate for STEM Excellence. Montwood is the first comprehensive high school in West Texas to earn this prestigious honor. They're also the third campus in this district, the 16th high school in the entire nation, and the 50th school in the state to earn national STEM certification. In addition, congratulations to 9 of the Montwood High School teachers who have earned the National Certificate for STEM teaching. A big thank you to the faculty, staff, and leadership at Montwood for their commitment to give our students the absolute best. Also, a great job to all of the participants and winners of the District High School Science Fair. There were dozens of amazing projects that really showcase the high-quality research and discovery that is happening at all of our high schools. Thank you to the Science Fair coordinators, judges, academic science team, parents, and volunteers who supported our students through this journey. I also want to share that starting this month, we're going to be presenting board honors and special presentations at a special board meeting rather than during this regular board meeting. This adjustment will allow us to focus solely on highly deserving recognitions for our students and staff, and it also allows us to streamline the regular board meetings. So we're going to have actually our first special board meeting for board honors tomorrow at 6 o'clock here in this location. So we look forward to seeing you all here. And finally, as you all probably noticed by the decorations, it is National School Board Recognition Month. I'd like to thank our incredible trustees for their volunteer service to SISD and for the care and support for our students, staff, and community. And you heard that right. They are volunteers. Contrary to what some people think, this is not a paid position. They volunteer their time for this. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to please take a moment to thank the SISD board members. We'll honor them tomorrow with a formal recognition at the special board meeting. As far as upcoming events go, we have our Mother-Daughter Conference, which will be held on January 25th. That's this Saturday. America's High School from 7:30 to 3:30. Mothers and daughters, it's a great event, and we look forward to seeing you all there. And this concludes my comments for this month.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. Continue with our agenda. 4A, consider approval of proclamation for National School Counselor Week, which is February 3rd through the 7th, 2025. Ms. McCabe.
Good evening, President Nájera, Superintendent Vasquez, and members of the board. My name is Tammy McCabe, and I'm the Director of School Counseling for the district. Each year, the American School Counselor Association honors school counselors for their dedication to students in the community. This year, our National School Counselor Week is February 3rd through 7th. Each year, our department, the Department of School Counseling, asks that the board approve the proclamation. And this evening, I have 3 students that are going to be reading that proclamation. And before I introduce them, just want to say thank you, Board of Trustees, for everything you do. We appreciate you from the bottom of our heart for everything that you do for us. Our first student is Juan Cervantes. He's a 6th grader at Sunridge Middle School. And then we have Kaylin Hawkins, a 6th grader at Inzer Middle School, and Delilah Mata, an 11th grader at Socorro High School. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them to read the proclamation.
Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential. And whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to their career awareness development. And
school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and realistic goals for themselves. And
whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become a productive member of society. And whereas comprehensive development school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in schools. Therefore, we do hereby February 3rd through the 7th, 2025 as National School Counseling Week.
Administration requests that the proclamation be accepted as read.
To approve. Second.
I have a motion to approve made by Mrs. Macias, seconded by Ms. Gardea. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Continuing now with open forum. Each person who signed up was provided a copy of the open forum basic rules and advised when they signed up that policy BED applies to the process. Please respect the process during your presentation. As a reminder, you will receive 3 minutes. We do have several speakers signed up for open forum. I'll go ahead and call you up, but we also have 1 speaker signed up to a specific agenda item. And so when we get to that agenda item, I will call that speaker up. Okay. Our first speaker today is Ethan Chavez, please.
Good evening, board members and Mr. Vasquez. I hope you all remember me. I am Ethan Chavez, freshman at East Lake High School. I am here to give Mr. Vasquez an update on how I am doing. Thanks to my dad and stepmom, I am now at the school I've wanted to attend. I am an honor roll student and proud member of the marching band. Although my biological mother, Miss Denise Alvarez, teacher at Hambrick, has chosen not to call me, text me, attend my band events, support me, or remain in my life, I have found strength in those who care for me and truly support me. Despite that Dr. Graham, SISD police, and others here at the DSC allowed my biological mother to get away with assaulting my dad in front of me with no consequences, I stand here today with pride. I am grateful for those who have supported me and continue to guide me toward a brighter future. I would also like to encourage anyone that is being bullied, no matter who it is, to stand up for themselves and speak up like I do. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker, Sammy Carejo. Okay. Our next speaker, Alfredo Agüero, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alfredo Agüero, and I'm a community organizer in the area of special education and coordinator in El Paso, Texas for organization Time Done, and founder and support group for Parents Empowering Parents in Special Education. First of all, I want to let everybody know that I couldn't find the application on Socorro School District website to make the request for interpreter, but also some other things difficult to find. We had our first special education workshop for parents with children in special education. They will learn their rights and responsibilities so they can advocate for their own kids. Also, I want to remind you all about the request that parents make before, is to see if it's possible to include the parents group in the meetings that are being held about alternative programs for students with disciplinary problems. We make this request to Mr. Carmen Olivas Graham, Director of Administrative Services. She said to me that she will let us know about the next meeting, but till today, we didn't hear anything from her. Those who do not move do not notice the change, quoted by Rosa Luxemburg. Los que no se mueven no sienten las cadenas, citado por Rosa Luxemburg. Thank you, and we look forward to working together for the benefits of the students. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mike Armendariz, please.
Good evening, Mr. Nájera, President Nájera, Ms. Superintendent Vasquez, and members of the board. My name is Mike Armendariz. I am a former special education teacher with your neighbors, EPISD and Anthony ISD, for about 17 years. I now do some different work, and in addition, I also do some volunteer work with a gentleman named Mr. Leith Labrado. And I am here to speak on his behalf today. Mr. Labrado has been involved with daycares for many, many years, and he also runs a clothing donation program, and I believe he is a partner in education with the Socorro district. And what he does is he's at about 15 campuses right now, and through that donation program, as the clothes come in, he works very closely with the Opportunity Center to help give clothes to those that are in need of clothes, as well as working with students and families within your district and actually all the surrounding districts to provide clothes for them. In addition to that, as the clothes are collected, he is able to pay out to the actual schools for a fundraising program, which is an excellent situation. It's something that I actually volunteer to help be part of and help grow that program. Recently, it is my understanding that there is a certain individual in the community who has been kind of leading a smear campaign against Mr. Labrado. I'm here to speak on his behalf in that he has worked diligently to get this program off the ground, not only with Socorro, but again, other churches around the community, as well as all the other surrounding school districts. And it's an excellent program. I can vouch for it because I'm actually part of it. It benefits those in need, of course, through the Opportunity Center, and it benefits those in need that are part of our community here, you know, the families that go to our schools. And it's an excellent program. I understand that the individual who is leading this sort of smear campaign is just launching a lot of false allegations. He's been known to do so with other community leaders, certain judges, certain superintendents, and I just want to speak on his behalf because it would be an absolute shame to have to stop this program as a result of false allegations, because it is of such benefit to these campuses, to these children, and to the community at large, including our homeless and needy population. So I just wanted to address that. If you have any questions, I am welcome to answer them. Thank you so much. Happy to answer them, rather, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That was our last speaker. Again, we have one more speaker signed up to an agenda item, so when we get to that agenda item, I'll call that speaker up. Continuing then, district reports, 6A, budget workshop and legislative update. Mr. Solis, please.
Good evening, Board President Nájera, board members, and Superintendent Vasquez. David Solis, Chief Financial Officer for the district. This evening, we begin a series of presentations, discussions, and legislative updates to prepare for the adoption of the 25-26 budget scheduled for June. Last month, I presented the budget planning calendar. During this month, we shared this calendar with principals and administrators, distributed worksheets for priority expenditures and additional funding requests, and began working on preliminary revenue and staffing projections based on biennial student enrollment estimates. School districts in Texas receive funding from three main sources: state, local, and federal. State funding is determined primarily by student attendance, while local funding largely comes from property taxes paid by homeowners and businesses. Supplemental federal funding is provided to support students with special needs, migrant students, and those who are economically or educationally disadvantaged. It is important to understand that there is an inverse relationship between state funding and property values. Another way to illustrate this, imagine an empty bucket representing total funding needed for the district and two pitchers of water, one representing state funding and the other representing local funding. Water from both pitchers is poured into the bucket to fill it. As property values increase, the amount of water poured from the local funding pitcher increases, reducing the amount of water needed from the state funding pitcher to fill the bucket. This dynamic highlights how increases in property values impact the proportion of funding provided by the state. This slide presents a chart showing the percentage of funding received from each source for our general fund. Over 70% of funding is provided by the state, with local sources contributing about 25% and federal sources making up about 2%. State funding is directly tied to student attendance, which is calculated based on the average daily attendance of students enrolled in our district. The next slides illustrate enrollment trends across the following grade spans: early ed to pre-K, kindergarten to third grade, 4th to 5th grade, 6th to 8th grade, and finally 9th to 12th grade. As the charts show, our district experienced steady growth in enrollment for many years. However, like many districts across the state, we've recently seen year-over-year declines in enrollment. Before the pandemic, the district averaged an annual increase of 600 students. Now, we face an average annual decrease of around 650 students. This year, enrollment dropped by approximately 630 students compared to the previous year, and we are projecting a further decline of about 770 students for the next school year. This slide highlights the district's tax rate history since 2016. Beginning in fiscal year 2020, following the passage of House Bill 3 during the 86th legislative session, the maintenance and operations, or M&O tax rate, has been compressed annually. As a result, the district's total tax rate has decreased every year since 2020. It is important to understand there is a difference between the two parts of our tax rate. The M&O portion supports the daily functions of the district. This portion provides funding for employee salaries and benefits, student supplies, utility expenses, property insurance, and other essential operational costs that keep the district running smoothly. On the other hand, the interest in sinking, or INS, portion of the tax rate is specifically allocated for repaying the district's outstanding debt. This stems from voter-approved bonds that allow us to construct new facilities or make significant improvements to existing ones. While M&O focuses on operations, INS ensures we fulfill our financial obligations to repaying our outstanding debt. The next set of slides compares the district's tax rate with those of the other two large school districts in our region. The district's M&O tax rate has consistently been lower in comparison to the other large districts in our region. Notably, both districts approved tax ratification elections before 2020, raising their M&O rates to the maximum allowable rate of $1.17 prior to compression, while ours remained under $1. In contrast, the INS tax rate has been higher or comparable to those districts. This is largely due to the growth our district has experienced both in student enrollment and in the construction of new homes and businesses. To accommodate this growth, the district issued bonds to build additional facilities or make improvements to existing ones. As you can see from this chart, the district's total tax rate is currently lower than that of the other large districts in our region. While the district's tax rate has decreased over the years, property values have nearly doubled since 2016. Even with voter-approved increases in the homestead exemption from $40K to $100K last year, property values have increased by almost 17% compared to last year. This slide provides a comparison of taxable property values across the district. As you can see, our property values are higher than Isleta's, but lower than those in El Paso. This slide illustrates the district's tax collection since 2016 and the proportional share of those collections between M&O and INS. As previously mentioned, the M&O portion of our collection supports the daily functions of the district. This includes employee salaries and benefits, student supplies, utility expenses, property insurance, and other essential costs that keep our district running smoothly. The Texas Comptroller's biennial revenue estimate announced on January 13 projects $194.6 billion in available revenue for the 26-27 biennium. This estimate includes $24 billion in leftover funds from the 24-25 biennium. Of this amount in leftover funds, $4.5 billion allocated for public education and education savings accounts remain unused due to the lack of legislative consensus on the voter-like program during the last session. Competing priorities lawmakers may face include providing property tax relief, investing in special education and teacher salary increases, enhancing school funding, addressing healthcare needs, and strengthening water and power infrastructure. The legislative session began last week on January 14th following the Comptroller's revenue estimate. Since bill filing opened on November 12th, over 1,900 bills and resolutions have already been submitted. The bill filing deadline is March 14th, and the session will conclude on January 2nd, also known as Sendai. Tonight's workshop focused on preparing for the 25-26 budget, covered updates on the budget planning calendar, an overview of funding sources, a review of enrollment trends, and comparisons of tax rates and property values. We reviewed the funding structure for Texas schools, highlighting the inverse relationship between property values and state funding. Enrollment trends were also discussed, showing a shift from years of steady growth to recent declines, with a projected decrease of 770 students for the next school year. Regarding property taxes, we emphasized that despite property values nearly doubling since 2016, our district has consistently maintained a lower M&O tax rate compared to those neighboring districts and currently holds the lowest tax rate of the large school districts in our region. Lastly, we provided an update on the Texas Comptroller's biennial revenue estimate, projecting $194.6 billion in revenue for the 26-27 biennium, and shared details for the 89th legislative session. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Macias?
Yes, thank you for the thorough presentation. I know that we always look at revenues and, of course, how we're able to receive the funds. So, and I liked how you put in, the buckets that we have, what's coming from the state, what's coming from local, what's coming from federal. At the state level, I know that TEA also offers other revenue opportunities. Is that something that our district is looking at? For example, ADSE, additional school year. Is that what other revenue streams have you looked at? That way we're not just doing something the same, we're looking outside of the box to see what fits Socorro ISD.
No, definitely as we prepare for next month and we prepare for the revenue estimates, currently we are looking at different funding streams. Currently what we are working with the Center of School Finance to kind of review our current funding model so that we can find improvements and find those additional revenue streams that you just mentioned. So at the next meeting, we will provide information on those additional revenue streams available to the district from the state.
Perfect. The other question that I have, and I don't know, and I'm sure you'll bring it at a later time, is that looking at the funding, of course, the amount that the state still has available to provide to us, is there anything that you would like to share on record as far as what we're looking at in this biennium? What things are we possibly, even though they're not finalized, that we advocate for, and what might become the reality here for Socorro?
So there have been, since the session started, there have been several bills filed, or actually the Senate and the House have actually submitted their initial budgets from what I understand, and that includes different things to include yield increases to the funding formulas. There's other things that are embedded within it, but they still have to make it their way out of committee, and so I think it's a little bit premature to anticipate what the legislature may do and how those bills may change during the legislative session. What we are planning on doing is providing or estimating the budget based upon current law. And as updates are provided and as bills are passed, we can go ahead and update those projections and provide those updates to you during the budget workshops.
Thank you for sharing that. Is that oftentimes as we're seeing TV or hearing things, we automatically assume that the district could take action now? So that's why I asked the question, to make sure that just very transparently we understand that we're building our budget with our current laws, with the current amount that we have. And legislative session, that's something that we'll look at for possibly the following year.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Solis, when do you anticipate our first thorough budget workshop for the board?
So next month, we'll present our preliminary revenue estimates. In March, we should be able to provide you with a full budget outlook, because by then we should have our estimated expenditures. So around March, we should have those more thorough discussions. In addition, we'd be able to provide any legislative updates as the session proceeds. So my anticipation would be March.
Okay, sounds good. Want to be careful that we schedule around the advocacy days for the legislation, because we do need to make our presence and our voices heard during that period.
No, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Solis.
You're welcome.
Moving on then, 6B, District-Wide Intruder Detection Audit Report Findings. Mr. Livermore, please.
President Nahara, board members, Superintendent Vasquez, Ron Livermore, Director of Emergency Management. An intruder detection audit was conducted in the district by Education Service Center Region 19. Findings will be shared with the district's School Safety Security Committee and the Board of Trustees this evening. A plan of action is in place and will be shared with trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on then, we have item 6C. We do have one speaker signed up for item 6C. Mr. Lane, please.
Board President Nahara, Superintendent Mr. Vasquez, and members of the board. My name is Philip Lane. I retired from Team SISD in 2017. Before I begin, I do want to thank the board members for your service. I know you're here as volunteers, so thank you very much. I do remain concerned with the financial condition of the district, and I ask that tight scrutiny be given to financial reports, such as tonight's facilities report. In that report, a slide will be shown that lists detailed financial information where the total of column C is purported to equal the sum of values from columns A and B, less arbitrage yield payments. And while the totals do equal, individual rows on that slide do not equal, and further explanation is not provided on the slide. An arbitrage yield payment is a payment made to the Internal Revenue Service when the earnings from a tax-exempt bond issue exceed the arbitrage yield, and it's almost like a tax penalty. Incidentally, when I voiced concerns about this report during the December meeting, which Mr. Vasquez pulled the report that night, arbitrage yield payments were nowhere on the slide, so there's that change on the slide. Because the district recently charged taxpayers more in property taxes than was allowed by law, and this arbitrage yield payment is essentially because more money was taken in than was allowed by law. Those are very similar kinds of financial situations, and I ask that the board give a lot of detailed scrutiny regarding that. On the slide, there's a reference to column J, which is referenced in column K. There's no information available on what is in column J, so it's pretty hard to figure out exactly what is being shared in that report. The bond interest allocations appear to be disproportionate. For instance, on item 13, the support and technology building, it has an original bond amount of $12.5 million and a bond allocation amount of $2.5 million, or 20%. Item 12, the Students Activity Complex 2, has an original bond amount of nearly $66 million with a bond allocation amount of slightly more than $734,000, or about 1% of the approved bond budget. No explanation is provided why we have such a variance and disproportionate amount in the bond interest allocation. Now, I understand tonight's report is for information only, but when you have incomplete and questionable information presented to the board, members of the community are going to question that information as well. And I ask that the board set a climate of heightened financial scrutiny with the current district finances beyond just the face of information presented during board meetings. I know you give a lot of trust to the staff. There are many wonderful people that work for the district, but I really see your job is to trust and verify. So I ask that you do follow through and get more information on this.
Fierro.
Good evening, Board President Nájera, members of the board, Superintendent Vasquez, Liliana Fierro, Director of Facilities and Construction. I'm presenting an update on the 2017 bond budget and an update on the security fencing projects. So starting with the budget report, as you're aware, the 2017 bond program has reached 100% completion for most of the projects, with the exception of the maintenance and facilities building. This leaves a balance of $1,162,777.68 in the construction accounts accessible to Facilities and Construction Department, as you can see in column K, item 12. The total revised bond budget, column C, was $463,891,013.83. After deducting an arbitrage fee of $90,669.07, the bond budget is now $463,800,344.76. Mr. Solis will provide further details on the arbitrage fee. On the right-hand side of the report, you will find the amounts that describe the total estimated bond balance of $2,384,737. Mr. Solis will also explain the unallocated interest, sale of property, and the additional estimated arbitrage fee.
Good evening again. David Solis, Chief Financial Officer for the district. I'd like to provide additional information about some of these items. We did earn interest in the amount of $57.5 thousand during the month of December that is pending allocation. There was a sale of real property for $1.6 million and the arbitrage fee of $500,000. So as part of the plan to construct the Socorro Athletic Complex 2, or SAC 2, the city and the district agreed to a land swap. This exchange was facilitated through financial transactions on July 25th, 2019. On that day, the district purchased land from the city for $1.5 million using bond funds. In turn, the city purchased land from the district for $1.6 million. Both transactions were properly recorded in the bond funds during fiscal year 2020. Upon reviewing the details, I confirmed that the $1.6 million is included in the bond fund balance. However, this amount was never allocated to the bond budget. The next item, the arbitrage fee of $500,000. Mr. Lane did a great job explaining what arbitrage is, but as he mentioned, so when school districts and local governments issue tax-exempt bonds, we must follow specific rules for managing and investing those funds. Arbitrage occurs when the interest rate earned on unspent bond funds exceeds the interest rate at which the bonds were borrowed at. For example, if the bonds were issued at 3%, but the funds are earning 4.5%, this creates arbitrage earnings. If the investment earnings are too high, the IRS requires us to rebate or pay back the calculated excess to the U.S. Treasury. So for many years, low interest rates meant we rarely earned enough arbitrage to owe rebates. However, with the Fed significantly raising interest rates to combat inflation, we are now earning higher returns on our investments. As a result, we may be required to pay an arbitrage rebate back to the Treasury. So this fee is related to the Series 2020 issuance.
Is there any questions?
Thank you for the information. Is there a way that you could actually respond to some of the questions that we heard a little bit earlier? For example, what I heard was column J, what does it entail? Because I know D minus or C minus J is equal to column K. And that way it's clear for everybody listening. And then should A and B equal to column C? And that way that also clarifies at least two of the questions that we heard.
Absolutely. So for column K, right, we have C minus J. If you remember, my original report includes the consulting services, FF&E, construction cost, all those costs, okay? That is the J column. So I just try to do a summary of all those reports. So that's why you will see column K, C minus J. Okay. It was my mistake, I didn't delete it, okay?
Oh, that's okay.
But basically column K, it's what you have in column C minus the total cost for each of the projects. So for instance, that's you will see a 0 for items except item 12, because all those projects are already closed and any available funding was transferred to in this instance, to SAC 2 to complete the project. Now, to respond to the second question, yes, you will see a difference between A and B. And the reason is because the original approved bond budget, you will have this specific amount for each of the projects, right? Or the, for example, auxiliary gyms, the category, right? Column B is the bond interest allocation. Who made that decision, how much to allocate of each of the projects? I don't have that information, but that's the information that I received from finance reports. Now, you see those allocations for each of the projects. And so, for example, auxiliary gyms, your total will be on bond interest, 1.8. But then you will see revised bond budget of 22.2. It doesn't match if you add A and B. That's why if you see column C, total revised bond budget, I don't have that A plus B. I have it at the end. Because again, the money was allocated for each of the projects, but when the project was completed, any available funding was transferred to the next project to be closed. So at the end, the total A plus B has to match the totals of column C. Does that make sense? So that's why you will see the difference.
If I may step in, I think it was condensed for presentation purposes, But for transparency purposes, what we can do is we can post that again with all of the columns so public can see more clearly.
And Mr. Vasquez, just as a reminder, I mean, because the Bond 2017 information is posted on our website, and I went there just, to make sure that I was giving the proper navigation, but if you go to the homepage and you navigate all the way to the bottom of the page, there is a Bond 2017 link. And so can we make sure that the spreadsheet with all the columns so that, we see whatever C through J is posted there so that it's accessible, we can see the whole thing. But yeah, absolutely, I understand that. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure I would like to see all those columns on this slide because I would not be able to read them. So, but yeah, I do.
We'll take care of that.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Definitely, yes. Is there any other questions? Okay.
No. Thank you.
Just a very quick update on the security fencing projects. So we have package 1 and package 2, Americas, East Lake, El Dorado, and Montwood feeder patterns. Those projects are currently in the construction phase, and you can see the construction contract value for each of one. For the package 3, that project is currently in the bidding phase. We are opening bids next Monday at 2 p.m., so that will be our next phase on this particular package. Is there any question on the security fencing projects? Okay, thank you.
Item D, quarterly investment report. Mr. Vargas.
Good evening, President Naira, Superintendent Mr. Vasquez, and members of the board. My name is Rene Vargas, Director of Business Services. As per policy CDA local and the Public Fund Investment Act, I'm here to report the first quarter investment report for fiscal year 24-25. As you can see, as in prior reporting, we do have our 6 categories broken down for you. And on the far left description, you'll see the 6 investment pools that we have separated, each of them with how much we put in each fund of those pools. Starting with the operating fund investment, you'll see that we started with $72.8 million and as a book value, and ended up with $30,206 million. The difference between the book value and market value is only one investment pool, and that's the second and third row that you see, which is the LSIP. That's our Lone Star investment pool. That's the only pool that doesn't match the market value with the book value. So that's the slight variance that you see. And again, as you'll notice, it's very, very minimal. The interest for the period for this particular investment pool, the operating fund, is $517,272. Again, for this period of July through September of 2024. The next category is our health insurance fund. In this one, we only have one pool, which is that text pool that you see there. And we started our book value with $3.7 million and ended up again with 3.7. But the only difference is you'll see is that increase of the $49,509 as interest. That's the only increase that we saw in this particular category. The next category is our workman's comp fund. We only have one investment pool, which is the Lone Star. We have $451,367, ended up with $457,377. Again, the only increase is that $6,010 that you see as interest. The fourth category is our interest and sink. Again, as mentioned earlier, this is the district's debt. And as you can see, we had $89.1 million in beginning and ended up with 53.4. The reason for that, there's always a payment every February and August. And in August, it was like 36 million. That's the high one that we have comparing it to the one we make in February as well. The interest for this category is $929,642. And as you can see, there's a couple of asterisks, as you can see there in a couple of the funds. What that is that's the, just to remind the board, it's accrued interest. Again, these are investments that we do that we have a term on them. So it's not a daily rate, it's more of an investment. On this particular one, the first one that you see that where we made interest of 33,588. You see an asterisk right says, next to it. The accrued interest won't be actually received until February 6th of this year. So again, it was like a 4.5-month maturity that we invested in this particular one. On the next one that you see there, the 94,842, again, this is accrued interest, and that one matured on January the 16th, so you'll see an increase on that for the next quarter as well. On this particular page, you'll see the construction. On this one, you see a lot of categories with zeros, and the simple reason for that is because all those projects have been completed. As you all know, the 2017 bond is about to be concluded with the projects. So that's the only reason we have those zeros. As you can see, we started for this particular quarter, 6.2 million, ended up with 2.029. And the interest it made on this month was 44,443. The next category is the food service investment. This one, again, is just one pool that we use, the Lone Star. We have started with 441,280, ended up with increasing it by that 5,876 of interest, so it brings it to that 447,156. Altogether for this particular quarter, we made, the district made 1,552,753 in interest. So as you can see, just because of the amounts that we have there, we don't see so much interest as we did in the past. This next page is just a quick summary that sums up all the amounts, the categories that we just went through. As you can see in the book value, we started with a strong 172.8 million, and it's gone down in September to 90 million. 382,296. Comparing it to the market value, as you can see, that's the slight variance that you see that we just mentioned. So that's the small variance that you see between those two. This next slide shows the interest rating that we verify. We do verify it each and every month. As you can see, it separates each pool so that, starting with text pool, First Public, Logic, those are all the six investment pools that I just mentioned. And these are the ratings that they give you on a monthly basis, and we do, based on policy, we do look at it on a monthly basis. On the next page, it's the following investment pools. And again, as you can see, we do verify the ratings. And lastly, you see the signatures. It is required that the investment officer, at least one of them, look at it and that they sign off on it. Are there any questions I may answer? Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Item E, Transportation Hazardous Route Designation. Mr. Harmon, please.
Good evening, Board President Nájera, Superintendent Vasquez, Mr. Vasquez, and members of the board. My name is Dexter Harmon, Director for Transportation. I come before you tonight presenting you some updates as they pertain to our hazardous routes, some changes that will impact some communities in our district. As per board policy, we want to make sure that the board and the community is informed of any possible changes that we'll be making for the upcoming year, 25-26 school year. And the public notice will go out to the community to advise them, of course, of the hearings that we'll be having, to inform them of those changes that we will be making. As you can see, that we have the proposed dates on the 4th, February 6th. These are 2 weeks from now. And of course, our public relations department will be putting out the information to the public as well as any transmittals from the campus to the community as well. I'm gonna go through, I did provide you a new attachment to the presentation that I had here. We made some revisions to some of the campuses and of course, just the order of the slides, just to kind of make it a little smoother. So I just want to highlight the importance of this, and this notice is to update the current designation of hazardous area from the following campuses. This is, the areas affected will be the John Enzer Middle School, Horizon Heights Elementary, and Sergeant Jose Carrasco Elementary. And this particular case, the recommendation, or we're coming before the board, is because those areas that were once designated hazardous are no longer under construction. At one point, especially with some of the new communities like Jose Carrasco, we had a lot of construction surrounding the neighborhood, the campus. Last month, we went out, we try to review as much of the areas, different routes, different approaches to the campus. Jose Carrasco, the largest project was the park directly west of the campus, which was creating a lot of students arriving to the school. That completion, that project is done already. We don't foresee any more issues with any obstacles or obstructions. So as per policy, and in keeping up with them, this is the reason we have the last letter there, E, majority of the area under construction, because that is, as per what's been adopted by the board. We want to make sure that we're keeping in compliance with what is accepted to be designated hazardous. What you see in that list, in the attachment in the PowerPoint, is all the areas that are currently designated hazardous and the condition as to why it meets that condition. Must walk across the freeway, construction, major traffic, arteries, anything like that, railroad crossings. We had no changes in those. Those are remaining the same. Excuse me. And then here, the heart of the presentation is the list to discontinue service. And again, this is the map that defines the area. These are the neighborhoods, the Charles Foster area that is directly west, southwest, and south of Sergeant Jose Carrasco Elementary School. Like I said, in reviewing the area, infrastructure, crosswalks, streetways, constructions, there was a lot of home construction. That construction is done, and of course, the major project, the park, that is at completion already. Like I said, going through the area in detail, different paths, they are under 2 miles. Therefore, they are now what we would consider non-hazardous or parent responsibility zones. We have 3 buses that currently serve Jose Carrasco. This recommendation will eliminate 2 buses. We are, just to give you some information, there's about 700 eligible or students, scholars that live around the campus. This will be affecting about 120 to 140 scholars that actively ride the bus. I think that's information to let you know as well. So eliminating those buses, it will be 2 buses. We would have 1 neighborhood that would still continue to qualify, and that's the area southwest. If you're familiar with the neighborhood, that's where the East Side Sports Complex is. There's a neighborhood there. That would be the one that continues to qualify. Horizon Heights Elementary, that map, of course, at the time when it was taken, all those homes are completed already. This would only be affecting about 7 to 10 students. We are just removing stops from a bus that currently goes through there. We have the same situation with about 10 students from Colonel John Enzer Middle School that will be affected by the proposed changes. These are our information contacts. Like I said, we are proposing to go out in the next 2 weeks. We'll have those community meetings. We want to get as many parents involved. Just to give them information on the proposed changes. The last thing we want is, if approved and the changes are approved by the board, the last thing we want is them to be at the stop at the first day of school. So we'll be back here in March with
any feedback that we did get from the community. Any questions?
You have one question. I know that you mentioned the students impacted the most will be from Carrasco. I see that you have one meeting there, possibly not very well attended. How will you make sure that those 120 families know that the meeting is there or get their feedback?
So what we're gonna do as far as transportation goes, we're gonna actually send notices with the students. And I know
perfect.
sometimes that may or not, but I think 2 weeks leading to the event, we'll send them, an actual physical form with, they can turn into the parents, we'll let the drivers know as well. And of course, any communications from the campus. If you feel we should have another meeting, I mean, we can do that as well, but we'll have those two, and then we'll have the online community meeting for anybody who couldn't make the physical meeting.
No, that's perfect. I just wanted for you to have that opportunity to share how you're doing everything to make sure that those families know the recommendation, so that whenever this does occur, they know that possibly
Yes.
our yellow limousine won't be stopping in their area anymore.
Exactly, and they are informed of the criteria prior to school starting, but of course, these are conversations that were had 6 years ago now. So I know most of them are either new community members or aren't aware, but we'll do everything we can.
Mr. Vasquez, can we try a marquee notice as well to make sure that people are aware of the community meeting?
Yeah, we can look into different options, perhaps text message or something to those affected students and their families. So we can look at other options.
Herman, what about the permanent construction right there at Pelicano and 375, which is not going away anytime soon? And I don't even like driving through the area.
Yes,
You know?
it's bad.
And that intersection, it's even off. It's not 90 degrees all the way around.
Yes.
So that doesn't qualify for hazardous routes for any of our students there.
We do have some routes that, for Drugan,
Okay.
that are under the hazardous route criteria. I think that's probably the only one for that particular area.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6F now, TEA Conservator Executive Summary Report. Dr. Hinojosa and Mr. Kim, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, thank you for allowing us to come give this summary report. And if someone will pull up the slides, please. We're going to be brief this evening. I do want to point out that the major portion of our work has been just consistent monitoring and work with the staff and the board, and it's been quite a pleasure to be here. This report is not completely exhaustive. This is not everything we've covered, but we have focused on preliminarily on the budget and some items that needed to be corrected. We do think that this is potentially a two-year corrective action plan with some opportunities to finish earlier. We go to the next slide. April 2024. It just seems like, and we just started, but we've been here for a while, but it's been quite an experience. The only regret I have so far is that I haven't gotten in the car and driven by my old house behind Mountainwood. So at some point, I'm going to get a rent car and go drive the neighborhoods, because I know they've changed a lot since I was here in the 90s. And while we've been here, and this is not an exhaustive report, we have taken the opportunity to help you put out some fires. And I do want to thank the board for exercising some fiscal discipline in your salaries and in your benefits. And then you heard the report tonight. You're going to lose another 700 students. And so good things happen by design, not by accident. So we're going to help you design the work to help us get to the place we need to get in the next few months. They're going to be critical. If we go to the next slide, why are we here? Well, first of all, we know of the academic issues in 2019, and We want to thank your staff because a lot of things have been put in place to make sure that doesn't happen again. There were some allegations of conflict of interest. We're confident that does not exist anymore. There was an unauthorized use of some district funds regarding stipends. That has been also corrected. There was been some alleged misuse of special ed funds and personnel, and we're working deep on that. And then also there were some pervasive governance concerns. And I think that the board has done an outstanding job of embracing the Lone Star governance process. You've done an outstanding job of working with us. You've been honest with us, and you've let us be honest with you. And that's what it takes to be able to manage the situation, and that's why we're here. I'll be back in just a moment to talk about a summary, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kim, who has done a lot of work on our needs assessment process.
Thank you very much. Good evening, board members. Mr. Vasquez. Let me quickly go over the process in itself as a needs assessment. Once again, as Dr. Hinosa just mentioned, this is not an exhaustive process, meaning that in the duration of our stay, certainly if there are additional needs and additional areas that we need to look into, certainly you can raise those as well as the community. Certainly we'll be looking at those as well. But essentially, the Texas Education Agency has 6 areas in a broad sense that gives us the authority to go ahead and review. There include governance, fiscal management, teaching and learning, talent management or HR, operations, which covers a very wide berth of an area, and culture. Culture is a very important one to us, certainly, and that encompasses a different abstract or subjective areas. We can go into a little bit more detail. Let me go over the areas of all these 6 areas, and I'm going to go into some of the strengths and growth areas, and certainly these will be turned into actionable items that the school district will need to tackle in the next year or 2 years or so within our stay to exit the conservatorship. I'm not going to read over each of these bullet points. Certainly you can do that. I'm going to highlight a few of these in terms of the expediency of our presentation here. Certainly there's a great deal of strengths in the Socorro Independent School District. It is often said the school district is in a solid ground in many ways. It is a proudful school district. We do appreciate the fact that the board has really engaged in the Lone Star governance process. Part of that, though, of course, is growth is to continue that Lone Star governance, to actually complete that process and really adapt into that process. Certainly it was mentioned earlier by your new chief financial officer that the board's financial oversight is, I think, critical. You asked a great question earlier about when's the next board workshop. I think that's a very critical point to go through that budget process. Certainly there are other areas of growth. In terms of fiscal management, which I know has concerned us in the last few months, probably overwhelmingly more so than any other areas. Certainly there are some strengths though. We do have to recognize the fact that in prior years, your first financial rating has been superior and really excellent. Certainly you've done the yeoman's work of hiring a new CFO, which is a struggle for many school districts out there to find a very capable CFO. I think that's a strength. Certainly when it comes to the growth areas, we will need to, as you know, look at the cash flow position. Also the fund balance position that's unassigned. As you know from the last few board meetings ago in terms of where you are, it's a very low situation. Depending on how fast you want to gain and improve upon that situation will financially stabilize the school district in many ways. So you're not really out of the woods in that area. Certainly there are the work to be done in that process. I'm also wanted to just point out here the first about district financial management practices and accounting procedures need attention. Certainly you've had great people, but once again, there's always a way to improve that processes in order for the information to be readily available not only to you, but certainly to the public. And to that, of course, Mr. Vargas's last presentation here tonight, he's done a great job of supporting as well as Susan when I was here, so I do want to thank them quite a bit as well. When it comes to teaching and learning, this is, I think, overall strength of the school district. We really haven't had a chance to really dig into it because you've done a great job, and your staff is excellent when it comes to academic performance, providing opportunities for your students. Certainly, you've addressed one of the key areas that caused the concern for us to be here, which was the loss of credit or the graduating requirement back in 2019. By and large, you have a majority of it has been resolved or have a processes in place. Certainly want to thank the staff that's part of that, and I think you know who they are, that's really working on those. When it comes to some of the issues, though, of course, special ed becomes an area. Certainly you have a new director in charge of that, and working with that as a growth area is something that we want to see. And certainly a continued codification of the loss of credit or graduation requirements to make sure that that is not something that's going to come back up is an important thing to move forward with, and making sure that it is part of what we need to codify within the board procedures and policies. When it comes to talent management, certainly you move quickly. It was a very tough decision, I know, about the healthcare plan, but certainly kudos to the board as well as your staff and all the employees who participated in that to really understand the situation, to really pivot towards a new consumer-driven health plan. Certainly there's a need to be more work to be done in that area, and certainly we'll push for that. I did put on here as a growth area is a what's known as a teacher incentive allotment, or TIA. It does take a lengthy process to get to a TIA process. But to your question, additional new fundings that will potentially come from the legislature will be involved in this particular process. So I think it's important for the district to at least consider or have a debate and discussion about future growth in the TIA world. When it comes to operation, and it seems like majority of the discussions, of course, in the board meetings are within this area. There are certainly areas of strength to consider. As it was mentioned, certainly the bond programs, you completed those, but at the same time, a strength is a weakness, meaning that one of the things that we will recommend is a better understanding about the transparency about the bond projects, especially conveying that to the public. Certainly that was just a recent topic just a few minutes ago. I think that's very important there. I do want to mention that as part of the activities that we will look at is working with your staff to create a deferred maintenance plan to make sure that we are at maximizing our budget, but also understand what our future HVAC units in terms of tier replacement schedules that we need to make sure that that's all codified and you know where those things are in the future. So those are some of the activities that we're working on in this area of operations. When it comes to culture, certainly you guys have done a great job, especially with the launch of the all-in theme that you have done. I think that was a superior or really excellent way of really marketing where you are, being really thoughtful to be transparent about where you are, just recently have gone to, and then where you're going for the future. And I think that's a very celebratory aspect of it. I do want to just commend the communication department to really help the HR and really in all areas to really get the word out, and certainly you've done a great job at that. But we do recommend certainly, once again, a more engagement with the public, certainly with parent involvement at the campus level. That is something that while it may exist to some degree, we have not really seen a robust way for parents to be involved at a level that needs to be connected to you in many ways. And certainly trying to figure out what that system looks like, what that process looks like, I think is a very important one, as well as perhaps a district-wide customer service plan that certainly addresses, you can do, that's something you got to do that continuously. So we do certainly recommend something of that nature going forward, and we'll be working with you on that. I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Hinojosa, who's going to talk about the major areas that we want to focus on.
Yeah, thank you again. And one of the things is that we're going to spend 2 days with your staff for the next 2 days. And we're going to go top to bottom. Between Mr. Kim and I, we have 42 years of experience as superintendents. So we're going to bring that. We're going to cover, by the way, when I was superintendent at Fabens, I was 6'5". And I've been cut down the size ever since. So I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm 5'6" now, so that's why I retired. I was going to disappear, but I think we're going to take that experience and we're going to work in 3 buckets the next 2 days. One is financial stewardship. You've heard from your community, you know where you are, you know where you're going, and we're going to focus on that. Second is student achievement. You've been working great about spending time on student outcome governance, and we're going to show you some things that have moved the needle. And yes, to your question, there are some state resources that are not being spent in this county that could reward your best teachers a lot more money. And it's not easy to go through that, but I'm going to show you staff some data that is overwhelming. And the third bucket is stakeholder satisfaction. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I get to my 4th point here, but these are the 4 things that we're going to help you with that are focus areas. Number 1 is appointing a new superintendent. That's going to get started in earnest. You've had a great opportunity to work with an interim who has calmed things down, but you will be working this spring on the superintendent search opportunity, and we expect that by the time we get to August or July, that process will be handled, and we'll work step by step with you along the way. Number two, we have to be transparent in everything we do with budgeting and human resources. 90% of your money's in people. And so how you set up the systems are going to determine your future. And if we start planning now for it, I'm very optimistic that we will be satisfied. However, I need to give you a warning, because you can't talk your way out of things you behave yourself into. And because of our past, your next first rating is not going to be good. And so you got to understand that, you got to accept that, and you got to know that that's something that you need to set goals towards to fix. And if you work on that, I'm very confident we can get you there with continued discipline. We also want to make sure there's smooth cooperation between central office and campuses. Your academic results are outstanding, but also customer service not only involves the community, it also involves the staff. And so we're going to show them a customer service model that is very effective, that is very systemic, and that will help you in the long run. And then the fourth one, your work with the community. The board has three major jobs: hire a superintendent, set policy, and adopt the budget that's recommended by the superintendent. All three things, you're going to be very transparent and engaged with the community. As you come up with your student outcome goals this spring, there's going to be a lot of community feedback. As you go out and develop the profile for the superintendent, there's going to be a lot of community feedback. As you do your budget, there's going to be a lot of community feedback. And so I think over the next 2 days, we're going to plan out the next 18 months. And we'll start, and every quarter, you pierce the next quarter and things become more clear. So that's what we're going to be working on. And I think that we need to enhance your community feedback, and we're going to do it in the three very organized buckets this spring. And I'll turn it back to Mr. Kim.
You may be asking, how's this going to get done in terms of our work? Certainly our job is not to just show up for the board meetings and sit here and just watch and perhaps make comments along the way. There is actually a behind the scenes sort of the process in terms of how the sausage gets made, so to speak. Certainly we'll be moving into what's known as a progress report process. And with that, there will be additional goals, activities that will be identified under those large categories that Dr. Hinojosa just mentioned. It covers certainly all areas, 6 areas that we just talked about. Along the way, of course, as needs arise, whether it's something that you see as a need, certainly something we see as a need, we'll certainly try to address that and incorporate that into the need or the progress report. This is a living document, so it's an ongoing process. With that, the Texas Education Agency has a 90-day review process and a monthly review check of our progress that we have to give notice to. What that means is that we have to provide to the Texas Education Agency on a monthly basis whether or not an activity is on track, or it's not progressing, or it's not started, and so forth and so on. So that will be something that will be shared with you and certainly the staff members who are in particular charge of some of those activities that are going forward. At this particular point, that progress report is still in development. This is the initial phase of just sharing with you an overall needs assessment in terms of where the strengths and weaknesses are for the school district, and perhaps get your feedback just as much as well to tonight to add on to going forward with that. At some point down the road, there will be a removal letter from the Commissioner of Education that there will be satisfaction of our work, and so there'll be an exit of the conservatorship, and then of course back to you in terms of the work without the Texas Education Agency being involved in that. As Dr. Hinojosa mentioned, there's typically a timeline of 2 years. Certainly that could be shortened just because of the fact that your staff is very excellent about taking care of the needs and the work ahead. Certainly, once again, we are developing those activities progress measures going forward. There will be a monthly report to the TEA, and the board will receive a 90-day notice every 90 days in terms of the work that's going forward from the Texas Education Agency. With that, we surmise a potential exit in February 2026. It's not a definitive date in many ways, but we always like to work with a timeline. And the Texas Education Agency likes to work with a timeline as well, too. Once again, it could be extended in some sense. It could be shortened as well, too, in many ways. But we thought that certainly we think that the talent that you have is capable of accomplishing some of the work that's been outlined here. With that, we certainly appreciate and thank you for the support that it's been given to us and your staff as well, too. They've been really gracious, hospitable as well to both myself and Dr. Hinojosa. But let me turn it over to you, Mr. President, for any questions that you might have or the board has for Dr. Hinojosa.
Questions?
Your arrival came with a lot of scrutiny. So how can we teach our community that having a conservator is something beneficial for SISD and how we're moving forward? Because what I heard was the strategic planning. That's amazing. Development as a strategic blueprint, the corrective action plan embedded, community and internal stakeholder engagement. I mean, those are all positive things that, how do we highlight that to the community to where we're continuing to, garner that respect back and that we're moving in the right direction and that your arrival was a good thing?
Yeah, effort is good, results are better. We can talk all we want, but the community's going to believe what we do. And I think we have a great plan and we have a great team, and I'm very confident that we will. But also, this is very unusual. You requested some support, and usually it's mandated by the state. And the fact that the board was courageous, said we need some help, and you reached out, and they reached out to us, and they knew we would be a good match for you. And now you're helping us go through the plan. And so I think that you also need to give yourselves some credit, because, El Paso didn't volunteer, Houston didn't volunteer, Beaumont didn't volunteer, and the upheaval was much worse in all those communities. And those are state takeovers, but even anywhere there's been a conservator, very seldom did someone volunteer to get some expertise and some help. And I think that as we start executing, and just judge it every quarter will have more deliverables, and you'll start seeing a difference. And so now we got to start giving more reports on student achievement, and you're going to get a clock about how much time you talk about student achievement. Because fixing a budget is linear. Fixing student achievement is not. And so we can fix the budget. It's just going to be a little painful. But all these other things have to come in coordination as we go down this journey together. But thank you for the question, but you also deserve some credit for this.
Dr. Hinojosa, Mr. Kim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our consent agenda. G3. G3? Oh. Making sure you're paying attention, Mrs. Nahida. Almost skipped over Mr. Mackey. All right. 6G, Community Listening Plan, Lone Star Governance. Mr. Ben Mackey. I'm sorry, sir. I almost skipped over you.
All good, all good. Good evening. I am so grateful to be here with you tonight. I regret that I could not be there in person with you due to some other conflicts today, but look forward to being back with you in person, hopefully, if not before, in February for the February meeting. This item, and I'll give a little bit of an overview just so it is public about the wonderful work that you all have been doing. I want to echo what Conservators Hinojosa and Conservator Kim mentioned around the work and the ownership that the board has taken. And in fact, to your last question, Trustee Macias, around how can we help share what is happening with the community and how we're actually moving forward, and it's a good thing. This is the way, is through having those conversations with the community and in an ongoing fashion, not just when we need something. And I will say you all have been so forward and upfront about what you're trying to get done and accomplish for your community and your kids. I have no doubt that that will shine through. And while Dr. Hinojosa might have mentioned the 3 legal requirements of a board to hire a superintendent, pass policy, and adopt a budget, what you're embarking on now is the why of that. To what end? Because underneath all 3 of those, the board is required to set the vision and the values based on what the community is saying they want, and then create alignment to that and communicate with the community. And so where we left off from our session back in November, this board engaged with the idea around what is community listening going to look like for us in Socorro ISD. Each of you all gave feedback individually. I was able to put that all together in a draft of what a community feedback could look like. Each of you also provided feedback again individually. And now we have a draft that has had your individual feedback that we will look at as a collective. And you all will look and see, does this make sense for the work we want to do with our community? So I'm excited to share with you today. And I'll have a couple points where I will pause and ask questions and invite discussion on this item. So it won't be the typical presentation and then discussion, because there's some points that I think is really important that the board hop in to be able to provide some insight. And our goal tonight is to get any last adjustments, feedback, etc. So the board can move forward with actually planning and then executing this community listening, which is going to be an enormous step towards continuing to rebuild the faith and the trust in the institutions and understand the work that you all are doing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should now see a presentation.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Apologize for interrupting, but would you do me a favor, sir? Would you, do you mind introducing yourself? That way the community and our listeners understand your references to Lone Star Governance, the work that we've been doing, as well as why it is that you're presenting on the community listening plan?
Absolutely. My apologies, and thank you for flagging that. My name is Ben Mackey. I am the Lone Star Governance Coach, so I'll be working in partnership with Conservators Hinojosa and Kim over these 2 years as the board really digs into identifying how to focus its efforts most effectively on achieving the outcomes that the community wants to see from Socorro ISD and protecting the values along the way. So my personal background, I have experienced both being in administration. I've been a teacher, a principal, and assistant superintendent in schools around Texas. I also have served and currently serve on boards and school boards. So I've gotten to see this from both an administrative perspective and a board perspective. And so my role in all of this is to simply be a coach and for the board to own all of this work. My role would be to summarize, ask questions, and that's why you see me presenting. And while I am presenting the summary, these ideas did not come from me, they came from the board. And so the goal of this is always anything that I present will be a starting point. And it's truly the board's to look at, pull, push, and then decide how it wants to own this going forward. Does that fit the bill, or is there anything else you'd like me to add on there?
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, and thank you for flagging that for me. So again, each of the board members got to weigh in about the question being, what do we need to do in Socorro ISD to make sure we have a robust and meaningful two-way engagement with our community as we, the board, move forward to set priorities? Because we know we're going to make some budget decisions. We know we're going to think about next year and beyond. But what are we trying to achieve? Because if we don't understand that and it doesn't align with the community's vision and values, then it's a lot harder to do. And so what we are talking about today is this purpose of this community listening session. So sometime over this spring, which we will talk about what the timeline is and when the community can expect to see that, and then when those dates are eventually, the board is going to finalize this community listening process to really get authentic two-way dialogue between the community and the school board members, in which case the school board members are the ones listening to what the community wants. And there's three big things that this board has said we want to understand from our community as we then go into setting our budget, thinking about what's going on next year and how our strategies are going to align. Number one, we want to understand what the community wants, what their community vision is. And this is what we as a board will turn into our priorities or our goals in Socorro ISD. The second thing we got to understand is what are our community values? These are things that as we as a board and as we charge our superintendent with achieving our goals, the things that we cannot sacrifice along the way. And we'll codify those as constraints. And those two things, the priorities, superintendent achieve these things, but not at the expense of our constraints, will serve to guide all of the decisions that we choose to make over the coming years. It will give us a chance to align our budget to achieving those, to making sure we adhere to our values, and that we are continually monitoring progress towards achieving each of these publicly so the community can also see what's going on, where we're moving, and how we're moving in that direction, and really rebuild that transparency and trust. Then the third thing, given Socorro ISD, that we want to really gain out of this is a real identifiable profile for our ideal Socorro ISD superintendent. That's going to be a process that the board will have to make over time, but it starts with hearing from the community. And each of these things we are going to solicit with our community listening sessions with the community and really get their input on each of these. There are three real big key elements that this board lifted up that we need to make sure of during this process. And I want to make sure that these are shared so everyone knows kind of what is top of mind. The first one is accessibility. That Socorro ISD should ensure that there are different times and different ways for community members to log in, to share their information, whether it's an in-person meeting or on a survey at different times on different days, because our goal is to truly hear from all parts of our community. This additionally means making sure that we are thoughtful about making sure all the materials are translated into English and Spanish at minimum, and then other languages as needed, and that we should make sure that they do not conflict with school engagements. The second thing, and this goes back to Trustee Macias's question on the last item, is this should include an element of trust building and letting the community know where we stand. So sharing where we've had success and what our challenges are upcoming, not necessarily with all the answers, but just to understand the process and what's happening now and what's going to happen in the next quarter as we move forward. And that this shouldn't be the only community listening. We should have a cycle and a cadence over time that the community can expect to have a two-way conversation with us as the board overseeing the district. And then the third big element that rose to the top was that we need consistency on these meetings and clear expectations. So the agenda, regardless if a person shows up at the first meeting or the last meeting, there's a consistency in how those are run and how we are trying to solicit this information that we want to know from the community, so all voices are represented there. So as we talk about these items, then the last thing that we really dug into was what could this look like for Socorro ISD? And here is essentially where we have landed. And this is where we're going to pause then and open up questions for this board to engage in this. What we have is this draft is 7 in-person listening sessions over the course of a certain number of weeks. And the ideal being that we would have 1 at each feeder high school and 1 at the central office. Then specifically, because there are a parent and a student advisory group, to make it a point to go to those advisory groups specifically and also ask them the same questions. At all of these in-person sessions, to make sure we have interpreters available and that we have at least 2 trustees at each meeting, so multiple trustees are hearing the voices of folks in that as they will bring all this back to the entire group. And then that we also have a survey available in English and Spanish throughout the listening process. So if someone cannot make one of these meetings, they can answer those same questions and have their voice heard all the same by filling out that survey at any point during this time. So with that, I'm going to pause and just get feedback from the board. And again, thank you to all the board members who provided input along this way, but things change and you might be hearing other things. Does this seem right for what Socorro ISD wants to do? And then what we would need to start thinking about, and I'd love to have a conversation here, is what timeline makes the most sense, knowing that we not only have to now identify dates, but also communicate them out to the community so folks know about these in advance and are coming forward. So let me pause there and just invite any questions, clarifications, or thoughts that board members may have on this.
Sure. I think it's something for the board to decide. I personally think we should start as soon as possible. And I know that part is being brought back at our February meeting, but if we could start the end of February, because part of it is hearing what our community would like to see in a superintendent. And as Dr. Hinoso told us, we need to get on that. So we need this information from our community ASAP, is my opinion.
Great. This is exactly the kind of information that I am hoping to receive. Other thoughts, questions, clarifications?
I also think that we need to start as soon as possible. However, I was going to suggest March after spring break, and I was going to suggest that because having the 7 in-person sessions is not what's important. The community being present is what's important, because if we have the sessions and we're talking to each other, it's not what we're after. We're looking for community engagement. We're looking to listen to the voices. And I think if we start advertising, if we determine target dates, we start advertising those now. If we start them in February, they're either going to happen very, very quickly, which means we might not get the engagement that we want, or spring break is going to get in the way. And so I figure if we start communicating these sessions now, start trying to recruit folks to participate in them, maybe even have the questions that we're looking to propose or discuss, be available ahead of time. That way, as soon as we're back from spring break, we can host these sessions and hopefully achieve the level of participation that we're looking for. That's what I was thinking.
If I can chime in real quick, we have parent and student advisory council meetings already scheduled for February the 7th. I'm not sure if what your thoughts are on at least starting with that group, if Mr. Mackey is able to attend that, at least to get the ball rolling.
Thank you. Other thoughts before I kind of chime in with a summary of what I heard and what I think is feasible, and then we can go from there?
I kind of like the idea of starting with the advisory groups because it would be we could kind of gauge how the interaction goes. And then maybe if we need, I know that we want consistency in these meetings, but this is the first time that we're going to reach out like this. There's going to be room for growth, and I think it'd be a great idea to start on the 7th. And I understand what Mr. Nájera is saying, because I do see that spring break everybody's brain kind of shuts down for a little bit, and so having them consistently is a good idea, but I think it would be a good idea to start on the 7th. Is there Mr. Mackey, is there an ideal end date that we're looking at?
It's relatively open. There's not a single ideal. I would say most boards that I've worked with in Texas or nationwide usually will contain it somewhere between the range of 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how large it is. You would like to, usually people want to get in the habit of getting them like one each week for a while. It seems to be enough time. The other thing that you all will have to make some decisions on is you definitely want this done and have been able to review the summary and begin to have conversations and share that publicly with everyone before you start making official budget decisions, which will be coming up quickly in April, May, and then June. So I think what I've heard so far is starting potentially with these first advisory committee meetings on February 7th, and then doing a wider community push to start the wider community conversations and have the survey available from mid to late February throughout March. Seems like it would work. Once that's completed, I'll be able to turn around a summary back of all of this information and kind of the big themes that were heard throughout, as well as the fact that you will have heard them from each of these meetings. That would be available publicly and then be the foundation of the conversation that this board is going to have around setting the priorities and the values. So I think this February, March is sounding like it makes the most sense on that. And that should align with both your superintendent search process as well as your budget process.
We might also have, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Mackey, we might also have to coordinate with TASB because, of course, we did engage with them for the superintendent search. And one of the requirements that we asked of them was to engage in community meetings for the superintendent search. So while I'm not saying the two processes, and I don't even think it would be a good idea for them to be mutually exclusive of each other, right? But rather a collaborative process. But just keep in mind that it's likely we should coordinate with them as well.
Yeah, I would say that would make a ton of sense. So if TASB is already engaged for this, I can connect directly with TASB and we can make sure that it aligns. The one difference that I want to make sure is clear is this is your community and the board are the ones that need to have this engagement. So while I will certainly be here for some of them and we will help and make sure to support, this must be board members having this conversation with the community. Ultimately, you all represent the vision and values of the community. And so in the same way, the recommendation is that even if TASB is involved and is able to start to kind of put this into a profile of what is heard, board members should be involved in that process, asking the community and soliciting those responses as well. But we can definitely coordinate directly with TASB to make sure that this serves the purposes of both. Okay, so what I've heard, and I'll summarize it, and then I would love just any other thoughts you have, is that it sounds like our goal would be to start and have the first sessions with the advisory committees on the 7th. And then flesh out the meeting dates and make sure that those are communicated as soon as possible. So I think it's feasible that we could probably flesh these dates out and finalize them within the next week or so and begin communicating them out publicly to the community by the end of January, which will give ample time for folks on those. And the meetings would span likely end of February into March, including some time after spring break as people get more and more engaged in the process to make sure we can communicate it out. If that sounds like it makes sense for the board, what we can do is the next step here is I will work with board services and they will coordinate potential dates and times, double checking it against calendars, making sure we could get interpretation services out. And then we would then, based on those dates, need to identify which trustees on this panel would be able to facilitate which of those nights. I know folks have other jobs, other commitments, et cetera, so that you might not be able to make all of them, and that would never be the expectation. But this will require some time for trustees to be out there. I think the way the math works out, that it will essentially come up to each trustee being willing to do approximately 3 to 4 of these over the course of the entire time to make sure we have 2 trustees at each. Okay, I see nods. So we will then go back to the next question, which I think just came forward because am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Great. So the next element here is, let's talk about the questions. We actually have draft questions now that the board, I'm going to welcome your insight into, and if you see anything that you might want to change or adjust. But if these are the questions that we decide to go with, then we can communicate these out as soon as we start communicating all of the other information. And that way the community can actually look at these and start thinking about these in advance. So the first 2 questions align with trying to ascertain what the community's vision for its students are. And the way we have this, you'll notice these are all open-ended because we want people to be able to express their true thoughts around this without being pigeonholed in. The first is asking, what are the most important things that the Socorro ISD student should know or be able to do because of their time in Socorro ISD? This one will solicit a lot of responses all over the gamuts, all focused around what students know and should be able to do. And then what we would do is ask individuals. They might have come up with a list of 2 or 5 or 10, and it could span everything from the early learning space to by the time they graduate, anything in there. We are going to ask community members also, you can name a bunch of things that are important, but if you could only prioritize 2, which 2 of those that you listed would you prioritize? This will give a sense both about the breadth of what people are saying and about what the prioritization is of those. So then we would switch gears to the values, and essentially the same setup would occur. We would say, with those priorities in mind, so we're going to go try to achieve those priorities. Then what do you believe are the things that Socorro ISD should avoid or stop doing as it focuses on its priorities? The goal here, because a lot of times there's a question about this negative language? Why should we avoid or stop? Is folks can really still put whatever they want in there, but it just makes sure that we are keeping in mind that our goal is to achieve the vision, but not sacrifice our values. And so they might list a whole lot of things here. And then from that list, we're going to ask them if they could only prioritize 2 of them, what would they prioritize? Therefore, again, we get the breadth of what people are responding as well as the prioritization. And then finally, around leadership. What characteristics should Socorro ISD be looking for in our next superintendent? This is going to be the foundation of your profile, being able to kind of give you a sense of everything that a community wants to see in their next superintendent. But then again, we're going to ask folks filling this out, you might have a whole bunch of things, but if you could only prioritize, what would you prioritize? And again, this gives a sense of that breadth and the depth of priority. And each of these, we would take back, we would have this in one centralized location, and this is something that I, myself, with the conservators, would work to go through and make sure is coded in a correct fashion so that when we turn it back to you, you actually get a comprehensive summary of all of the responses and the trends that were emerging from this. So these are essentially the questions that we would be asking. The same questions that would be here would be the ones asked whether they're at the parent or student advisory group or the community meetings or on the survey. We want to have consistency in that. But let me just pause there and see if this seems to make sense and seems to get at the heart of what Socorro ISD board is trying to ascertain. And then if we want to see anything that we might want to adjust in the language or how we ask the questions, absolutely an open topic now. But then once we finalize this, we can start communicating this so folks can start thinking about this and having this conversation. So let me pause there to see if there's any thoughts or questions or reflections.
Mr. Mackey, I like the questions, and while they might not be the typical questions that we would pose in a community session, at least not in my experience, and maybe not the ones that would first come to my mind, these questions get at the heart of what the teachings and learnings of Lone Star governance, is about, and help us as a board, as well as the community, come to the understanding that what we should be focusing on is student outcomes and making sure that our students are the priority of the board, and that making sure that our students are well educated and that we're doing everything to support them, again, is what we're focused on.
Thank you.
Mr. Mackey, my feedback is, I think the questions are spot on. My concern is that oftentimes the parents that come to us during meetings, they have great things to say. However, many of the parents that don't, we also want to hear from them.
Mm-hmm.
So how will we extend that olive branch so that we hear all in whatever language they want to share with us, but that way we are very aware of what their vision, values, and their characteristics for leadership are, to where we are very informed of a broader base of everybody that we serve, and not just those that are able to come to our meetings.
Absolutely. This is the heart of the question, is how do we make sure we hear from our entire community, not just particular elements of our community? I think there's a lot of ways to consider this. So I think number one, having the survey available online that people can access from their phones or from wherever throughout the entirety of the process goes a long way. I would recommend that as part of the communication strategy is that this is sent home at every school with every student to every parent to make sure that they also understand that this is coming up and that they can either come to one of the meetings or simply fill this out on their phone. So individual pleas like that and connection points seem to work a lot. I've seen districts do call outs with that and have like a very simple QR code or a link, tinyurl.com/Socorro ISD or something like that, where they can just listen to that, sign online, and fill it out real quick. I've seen this as, when folks are doing any sort of regular SBDM or PTA meetings, the principals will share this out with parents or folks there. So it's really about just the intentionality of how we are reaching out. You're right, not every parent is going to come or is even able to come to these meetings in person. It's why it's so important to be able to have a survey that can be filled out at 2 a.m. in the morning if need be, or at 7 a.m. And then it's really just about what is our strategy to get this out in front of folks. I've seen at elementary schools, people in car lines, teachers that are opening the doors also saying, hey, please fill out this. We want your feedback about what our priorities should be. It takes 5 minutes. So I've seen a lot of things like that. I think it's really, as we'll talk about in this last element here, is kind of what are the next steps. What we can do is work with administration and the communications department, who can kind of say, here are some of the things that we think could get this in more hands out there as we go forward. And the last thing I would note, one of the things that we'll do as part of the survey, as well as the in-person, is we're going to ask people, where are they from? What feeder pattern are they in and whatnot? The board might look at data and say, hey, we're missing a big swath of this other neighborhood or this particular zip code. Let's go and actually go back out to that area and start talking with people again there, because we didn't get as much engagement as we wanted.
Thank you. And what I heard is possibly going back to old school paper pencils, putting it in the backpacks. And then just that intentionality, if there is a parent that is not technologically savvy, that we have that ability for them to come in and just give us their information written, and we're able to transcribe it into whatever document we develop.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mr. Mackey,
I actually really like that strategy.
just a quick question. Will the only identifying part of it for the parent be the feeder pattern or the school that they, or are these going to be anonymous?
They are usually anonymous. You do want some information, zip code, sometimes leave it as some districts, if they're concerned about one person submitting a whole bunch of surveys, need to make sure that it could be like, you want to make sure that people are giving a name or an email address. If you're worried about that, others say, nah, it's anonymous. We're going to be able to look at it or kind of see that discrepancies in there. I would say this is generally, because it's broad, there's sometimes less of a need to be anonymous, but that's going to be a board choice. You all can decide what you want to do in terms of you think it's more effective to make it anonymous or not. I've seen boards go different ways, and I think it really depends on the community.
Said that this would be given to the teachers and the staff as well?
Absolutely. Teachers and staff, they are community members, they are stakeholders. They should absolutely be able to provide their input on this as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Then based on that, we will kind of finalize these questions and work with the communications team to get a plan together that we will share with you all in a board update as this moves forward, and gonna get that nailed out. Here are the upcoming next steps then, based on this conversation, because it seems we're pretty close and excited to kick this process off. Next, the administration and board services will work to finalize and schedule these dates and make sure we know which trustees will be able to attend on which dates to be able to run these meetings. We will also, in the coming week or so, the communication department will kind of map out what this campaign will look like to make sure the community is aware and able to engage in this process, including translation services, interpretation services, etc. The next thing that we will do is norm on facilitation, because each of these meetings should ask the same questions in the same way. So if we move forward with February 7th, for the advisory meetings, I would likely work to come out there with you all in advance and kind of meet and kind of either facilitate the first session with some of you all able to help, and then pass the reins over so you all kind of see what it looks like, and we can go through a facilitation together and make sure you feel comfortable running any of these community meetings going forward. And then finally, after that point, you all would run off and execute this thing over the course of February and March. And as that information comes in as collected, and part of that will be after each meeting, the way we will run this, we will actually have documents and artifacts from everyone who is there to kind of share this information back. That is something that I will be summarizing and organizing and compiling in a way. And once this closes, within a week of closing this, I will be able to turn back out to you and the public. Here is the summary of what was shared. And that's now when the board can then serve as a foundation to talk about what did we learn from this? What did we hear? And now, based on what we heard, how do we set our priorities? How do we align our budget? How do we think about our superintendent search? as we try to achieve what the community has shared as its priorities, vision, and values. So that's what's coming up next. You can expect an email and a communication from me, and then definitely a lot of communication from your communications department as we work to finalize these dates and finalize the survey, and then go from there. But I'm just super excited with the way you all have engaged in this. I am excited for you all to get to engage deeply in a two-way communication with your community members. It is my prediction that you all will find this incredibly energizing and exciting. So with that, I'll take any other questions or thoughts, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Questions? Mr. Mackey, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all.
Okay, now item number 7, consent agenda.
Mr. Nahida, I would like to pull item G3. This item needs to be considered after new business item 8A.
Item J2, please.
If there are no further items, I make a motion to approve consent agenda with the exception of item G3 and J2.
Second.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Nahida, seconded by Ms. Gardea to approve consent agenda, excluding the 2 items Mrs. Nahida listed. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Moving on then to item J2. Ms. Macias.
Yes. On local policy EI, it reads, effective the 2020-21 school year and thereafter, courses taken in the district may not be averaged with courses taken in other districts. And I do agree with the other information there, which is option high school. But my question is, why are we self-imposing? Why in 2020-21 did this come up? And is this hurting, like I was thinking, our military-connected students or those students that are coming from other accredited schools, but yet they can't credit average? So I was just wondering for history and...
Yeah, we'll have Carlos Guerra, our Assistant Superintendent for High Schools, come up and explain that.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, President Nájera, Interim Superintendent Vasquez, and members of the board. Good afternoon, Ms. Macias. To answer your question is, as discussed with the proposal for the consent agenda, we are making the proposal that we allow for students at Options High School to be allowed to credit average with other districts. To answer your question fully, we continue to evaluate the process of possibly going with this same suggestion for the rest of the policy district-wide for the rest of our campuses. The reason why we decided not to go with that decision at this time is because we're still evaluating possible consequences with the rest of the state and districts. So we wanted to make a decision, like a phase 1 of the decision, even though it might cost us to come back later on, maybe next board meeting or in a couple of board meetings. Given the fact that the students that are currently at Options High School, we're trying to get them across the line. We're trying to get them to make sure they graduate on time. For the most part, that student population has proven to be our most at-risk population. So we felt that we need to start removing barriers. The plan for us, working directly with guidance and counseling and the rest of the high schools, is to go ahead and evaluate it, and at some point bring in the proposal to possibly kind of remove what has been, like you said, kind of a self-imposed barrier to our students that, to answer your question, I don't know why it was there. But we are looking to possibly looking in what can we do to resolve it. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, it does, and I really like the process that you're taking, that you want to evaluate starting with Options High School, and then, if anything, please bring it back that way. As a board, we know, is this something that we could, like you said, you're going to bring it back to possibly remove it for the entire district, And I was just advocating for our military connected. Those are the first ones that came to my mind. But I like how you might be removing this barrier for all of our students, especially if they're from an accredited school. Why not credit average?
I appreciate it. I fully agree with you. So we are looking to make sure that we are taking care of all of our students.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions?
No.
I appreciate it.
Motion
Thank you.
to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve made by Mrs. Macia, seconded by Mrs. Nájera. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Moving on to item 8A, consider approval of the Juvenile Justice and Truancy Prevention Grant Program Resolution 2025. Ms. Hernandez.
Good evening, President Nájera, Mr. Vasquez, members of the board. Angelica Hernandez, Director of Attendance, Promotion, Placement, and Retention. We did receive a grant for the amount of $62,460.05. With this grant, it does expire August 30th of this year. We have applied for the new one for the next fiscal year, but with this amount, we will like to hire 3 full-time contracted case managers that are going to provide support to campuses in identifying the students that have truant behaviors, find root cause, and help the campuses with implementing truancy prevention measures. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. On the resolution that is attached to this, it states that the board is giving you permission to apply for the grant. Is that the one you already have or the one you're applying for?
The one that I already have.
I see, Ms. Nájera, what you're saying.
Yeah.
It does, it's several options, though, just for clarity. The authorized official is given the power to apply for, accept, reject, alter, or terminate the grant. So I guess in this instance, what?
In the next paragraph?
Oh, there it is. Now therefore be it resolved that the Socorro Independent School District approves the submission of the grant application for the Juvenile Justice and Truancy Prevention Grant Program to the Office of the Governor. Blanco, what was?
That's a good question. So the way the resolution is drafted, it's authorizing the application for, I'm sorry, Steve Blanco, legal counsel for the district. The way the resolution is drafted, it is authorizing the submission of the grant application. I'm not sure, I was just asking the question who the grant writer is and how that was done, because normally the grant, the approval to submit a grant comes to the board. I don't know whether this was done or not. Do we know? Yeah. I don't know. We'd have to go back and check. But I will say this. Authorizing it tonight with a motion to ratify the submission of the grant application will be fine. We will revise the resolution language before it's signed off on by the board. What I would suggest you do is authorize and ratify the action to submit the application for the grant for the Juvenile Justice and Truancy Prevention Grant Program to the Office of the Governor. We know that's been done, so you're ratifying that action so that you can accept the funds and approve the resolution for the activity that's already been completed.
So move as Mr. Blanco stated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second. Sorry.
Okay, motion made by myself, as stated by Mr. Blanco, seconded by Mrs. Nájera. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item passes.
Ms.
Return-
Hernandez, I'm sorry, if I may. Ms. Hernandez, I'm sorry, I don't have any problem with the resolution or the item, but I just wanted to make sure that we were doing the right process.
No, I understand.
Thank you.
Returning now to consent agenda item 7, G3, which
Yes, sir.
is Region 19 Allied State Cooperative RFP number 22-7448, temporary services, and this is the approval to hire 3 full-time contracted case managers as in accordance with the grant.
I do have a question on this one.
Board President, board members, Superintendent Mr. Vasquez, I'm Gabby Garcia, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, ma'am, I do have a question. Since these 3 positions are grant funded, is that specifically told to on the application that this is grant funded positions, and if the grant runs out, they will not be renewed?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, President Nájera, members of the board, and Mr. Vasquez. Selena Stiles, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer. So these are going to go through contracted services, so they will not be district employees. So they won't have to apply through the district or be notified in that way.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve made by Mrs. Nájera, seconded by Ms. Gardea. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. 8B, discussion and possible action to approve an order of general election. Mr. Blanco.
Thank you, Board President Nájera, Mr. Vasquez, members of the board. Again, Steve Blanco, legal counsel for the district. You should have in front of you there an order approving the calling of the general election for the May 3rd, 2025 election. There's a calendar issued by the Elections Division, and we're required to comply with it. The next available date to approve the order of the election would have been in early February, before our February board meeting. So we're asking you to do it tonight. It's perfectly fine to do it tonight. We're just a little bit early. What we're asking you to do is to approve an order of election, to order the election to be held on May 3rd, 2025, for the purpose of electing 4 trustees for the Board of Trustees for the Socorro Independent School Districts for the following positions. District 2, which is a 4-year term, currently held by Mrs. Nájera, Cynthia Nájera, the Board Vice President. District 3, also a 4-year term, currently held by Ricardo Castellano, a trustee. District 4, a 4-year term, currently held by Paul Guerra, the Board Secretary. And District 5, also a 4-year term, currently held by Pablo Barrera, a trustee. The order sets out the early voting times and the early voting locations, and eventually will be amended when the Elections Department from the City of El Paso sends out, or the County of El Paso, I'm sorry, sends out updated election information. The order is drafted so that it can be amended. And those locations, dates, and times sometimes are changed. And as that goes forward in April, we publish the notice of the election. So the order that you adopt tonight could be changed, but what you're doing is approving the calling of the election. So we'd ask that the board and the administration recommends that you approve the order as presented to you tonight.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion to approve made by Mrs. Nájera, seconded by Ms. Macias. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Moving on to 8C, a discussion and possible action to approve the contract for election services. Mr. Blanco.
Thank you. This goes obviously hand in hand with the order to approve the election because you have to pay to run the election. The County Elections Department has sent us the contract. You have a copy of it there, and it has a summary attached to it showing the charges for the election. I've been doing this for a long time, and the fees have gone up. The current estimate from the Elections Department for Socorro's election, assuming that we have a contested election, the total amount will be $257,595.37. That's not a negotiable item. That's the item that the county charges. It is about $75,000 more than the last time I think you all did it, and it's going to continue to increase over time. They presented it, we need it done, so we're asking you and we recommend that you approve the current contract for election services with the El Paso County Elections Division for the May 3rd, 2025 trustee election.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Mr. Guerra, seconded by Ms. Gardea. Discussion? Mr. Blanco, for clarity, as I look at this and what looks to be the itemized total of the contract services, it says $257,595 with 37 cents.
Correct.
Okay. Sounds good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item passes. Thank you, Mr. Blanco.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to executive session. The meeting is to be closed for discussion with legal counsel regarding N. Carmen v. Socorro ISD and possible resolution of claims, to receive intruder detection audit report findings for Colonel John O. Enzer Middle School, America's High School, and Paso del Norte Elementary School, to consider administrative recommendations for Director of Business Services, Assistant Principal position at Waco Elementary School and at Sergeant Jose F. Carrasco Elementary School under Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.076. The date is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, and the time is 8:08.
Socorro Independent School District has more than 48,000 students and 51 campuses, but we're not just a number. Here, we're cared for, we're loved, we belong. Team SISD is a true Texas public school district that gives us unforgettable memories, traditions, experiences, and the opportunities we need to have a bright, successful future. Want to be a health professional? Once a bulldog, always a bulldog. Want to design skyscrapers? There's an empire for that. Have you heard the early bird gets the worm? Well, that's why they fear the falcons. We don't just rise. This is Sparta. We earn our horns and trailblaze and overcome to be the first and the best. I know. It sounds extra, but it's just our flex. For over 60 years, Socorro ISD has set its sights on our future with vision, innovation, investing, building, and planning to prepare us for the real world. These are our opportunities, and we will seize them.
Socorro ISD offers 45 different pathways in CTE. We have added PTECs, Pathways in Technology Early College High Schools. We have 7 advanced academies, and we also, throughout the district, offer 7 early college high school opportunities for our students. So there's a lot of choices students have to make while in 8th grade so that they have a pleasant experience while in high school.
My favorite part of HPA is the fact that we get like opportunities to go outside of school and go into hospitals, so we can actually get that hands-on and like actually view what is actually happening in the hospitals and clinicals. Since I'm interested in being an RN, I got to talk to actual RNs about their experience, where they're from. We went to UMC, we went to Providence. I also got to do middle schools and elementaries. It really helps you like build that understanding of how everybody's different, and you have to understand and like care to their needs.
Because it is really a dream that if I was a kid, I would have never believed that I was doing all this stuff that I was doing in the program. They make me feel like family. There's a sense that I don't get in any other setting. When I'm at school, I don't feel like I'm at school. I feel like I'm doing something that I want to, and the day goes by quick, super quick. And it just gives that sense of well-being and family, and it really is a dream, because I would have never thought I would be in the position that I'm in.
The students can select up to 3 different programs or academies that they would like to attend, and through the lottery process, they're placed in those different academies or early college high schools that they choose. We've had over 80% first selection offered for our students.
The Libertas Academy is a law and government program where students can learn how to be lawmakers, law officials, learn about the government, how it was brought up, and basically prepare us for the future in some sort of government professional field. My parents and I, we actually thought it was a really amazing opportunity, even as a high school student starting your freshman year, that you get to start learning about these career fields and that you get to really experience it firsthand, and you get to learn about these careers that you want to go into and get a step ahead of everybody else. It was just, we had to take it. It was an amazing opportunity.
The Academy provides a really unique experience because it offers students the rigor of not only college, but also like kind of a taste of law school, which is really unique. It's something that we really don't have anywhere nearby. So I think that it's really, really cool that it provides that educational opportunity, but also it provides that community. A lot of people think that we're just all business, that we don't have fun, but we really have become like a family. I really have found some amazing friends, amazing professors.
It's taken a huge investment, not only in equipment, facilities, but also in maintaining our teachers' credentials, getting them training, keeping them up to date with current standards. Socorro has always been known as a progressive district. By what we offer our kids supersedes most other school districts across the state. And I have great confidence that we'll continue to progress with what's leaving our schools.
So our dual language program consists of two different types of models. We have the 90-10, which is for pre-K students, and this is where the students are in a classroom with one teacher. Depending on their first language, they're going to get 90% of the instruction in English, 10% in Spanish, or vice versa, 90% in Spanish, 10% in English. And then we have our 50-50 model, and starts from kinder all the way to 5th grade, and this is where the students have two teachers where they're learning both languages, English and Spanish, 50 and 50% of the time, depending on the taught subject and language.
I can tell you it's full of excitement and engagement. Here the students get to create, they get to express themselves, and they have the opportunity to do it in both languages.
Porque han empezado desde chiquitos, entonces ya llevan mucho tiempo ellos en colaboración con los demás alumnos, y sí se ve que entre ellos mismos se apoyan. Tenemos parejas que son nuestras parejas bilingües, que viene siendo la fortaleza en un idioma, ya sea en inglés o el español, y están con otra persona que es el opuesto. Entonces entre ellos mismos se apoyan, ya sea en el aula que viene siendo español o en el aula que viene siendo en inglés.
I'm proud to say that we have had great success. Right now, we currently serve 4 campuses. Our students have been very successful. So the goal of the program is that the students become biliterate and bilingual. By the time they're in the program, they do achieve great academic level success. And of course, they stay in touch with their culture as well. Once a student completes 5 full years in the dual language program, then they can qualify for a Spanish high school credit.
Regardless if they're in the English classroom or the Spanish classroom, they have the same equal opportunities to practice all their domains, the speaking, the listening, the reading, writing.
Ellos colaboran mucho, son niños que siempre van a estar hablando, siempre van a estar participando. Cuando una persona entra a nuestro salón, nunca va a ser un salón que no se escucha nada, y creo que es lo que a ellos les gusta interactuar. Tenemos muchas manualidades, utilizan mucho sus manos, y ellos pueden colaborar juntos, y es algo muy especial que hacen ellos, esa relación también con ellos mismos.
They start working with cognates and false cognates. No se dice así, se dice así. Oh, now I remember, I saw it with Miss Gonzalez. Oh, no, wait, I saw in first grade, Miss Castro told me that it was this. So they start coming, and you start seeing them coming together. It's amazing because they start connecting everything.
SISD is truly the district that offers many opportunities for our students. Dual language is not just opening doors for our students to become bilingual and biliterate, but it's opening doors for their future.
Socorro ISD makes learning innovative. We fly drones, we take center stage, we take care of the environment, and we learn to take care of our health and become lifelong learners. Our new elementary academies offer unique programs to inspire, challenge, and prepare us for success. Register now at SISD.net and seize your opportunity in Team SISD.
The Socorro Independent School District is committed to helping all students find their voice and achieve their highest potential. We understand the important role that families play in our children's education, and we welcome you, our military-connected families, to Team SISD. With 46 schools designated Purple Star campuses by the Texas Education Agency, the most of any school district in the El Paso region, Team SISD is committed to supporting the unique needs of military-connected students and their families through a variety of resources and services. These include a comprehensive website for military families, a campus transition program, multiple special events, military family life counselors, and a military liaison at each of our 51 campuses who all reach out and serve our military-connected families. Team SISD stays in close contact with our Fort Bliss counterparts to access and share information, ideas, and trainings to provide the best education for our 6,500 plus military-connected students. To assist with the social and emotional needs of our students, we maximize support services by engaging with our school counselors, including our military and family life counselor, and local agencies such as NAMI, the YWCA, Child Guidance Center, local daycare providers, and the Paso del Norte and Meadows Family Leadership Council. We value and greatly appreciate the sacrifice our military parents make for our country, our community, and our children. We salute you, and we are delighted to have the opportunity to serve you and your family in our district. Thank you for being part of our district and helping us ensure that Team SISD is the right choice for endless opportunities. El Paso parents, pre-K to 12th grade registration is now open for new and returning students. Team SISD's pre-K programs offer engaging hands-on learning for young students to build a solid foundation in their academic journey. Join our top academic academies, award-winning fine arts programs, championship athletics, and career and technical education with highly qualified teachers. Register at SISD.net/enrollment and seize your opportunity in Team SISD. Hello and welcome to SISD TV News, where we deliver the latest news about the Socorro Independent School District. In today's segment, we'll take a look at stories and special events from the beginning of the school year. In our top story, the Education Service Center Region 19 announced the Teachers of the Year winners during an award celebration at the Starlight Event Center.
Socorro Independent School District.
Christopher J. Martin, a teacher at Colonel John O. Enser Middle School, was named the 2025 ESC Region 19 Secondary Teacher of the Year. He will now represent the region at the state level.
I just focused on trying to get better every single day, like the football players say. Next game, next day, focus, just get better. And as long as you try to get to be a better person every day, things just seem to work out. It's amazing.
Team SISD welcomed military-connected families during the first Welcome to Socorro ISD event. The event allows families to explore different opportunities the district offers in academics, sports, and college and career readiness programs.
Socorro ISD is the only district that has so many Purple Star recognized schools, and the reason that we have that recognition is because of the services that we provide for military-connected children and their parents. We have a military liaison assigned to every single one of our 51 schools, and we also have all kinds of events to involve them, to make sure that they are connected with each other, that they know who the other military connected parents are, because often that is the only family that they have in this community.
I think it's pretty cool because it kind of shows different families, the different like resources there are for military, like the MFLACs in the schools and the community and service, like counselors and stuff in the schools for that. I think it's beneficial for military families because there's more stress for those kids and the constant moving and everything. Like my senior is on her 10th school, and this kind of highlights it and shows us where it's available and what it does.
25th graders at Campestre Elementary School received free school supplies from the Healthy Zone and books from the Socorro Federation of Teachers.
When we found out it was in the morning broadcast and my kids looked at me, they're like, Miss Lovano, us, no way, we got chosen? And I told them, yeah, of course. I told them all the good things about you guys. So they were super excited, and when you guys walked in today, they were also extremely excited just to see the amount of effort and love.
Saying you want to do it and then really experiencing it, it's different. I didn't know the kids are going to react this way. I'm looking at them and then reading the books, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, like I would do this again.
It's really special because we come from a community that is predominantly low income. We are a Title I school at 92% low income. So it's an opportunity for our scholars to receive resources and supplies that are super needed for everyday use, for working with their teachers, working on projects. So it's a wonderful opportunity for our scholars to receive something that possibly their family cannot afford. So those donations, because of our beautiful community, is so welcomed.
So tonight, you see it on their face, the smile on their faces, it's priceless. You know, so these kids are bringing school supplies, books, so they can share this for a long time.
Evelyn Perez, a dedicated special education teacher at Eastlake High School, has taken her passion for educating and supporting individuals with autism to the next level by writing 2 books.
I want to create awareness through my books. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to teach children about autism so we could make this a better world. I know it sounds, you know, but that's my goal. It's been a surreal experience. Just I've been out in the community trying to spread awareness, and I've had mothers who have cried or it's been such a great response.
Team SISD kicked off the Walk for Success program with a call-out event. Principals, assistant principals, counselors, and teachers called former students who have not re-enrolled in school to encourage them to complete their education.
We want to let the kids know that we miss them. We want them to finish their degree. We want them to get their high school diploma. We want to see them walk across that stage, and we are a family, so we don't want to leave them, you know, out there and you know, for them to be dropouts. We want to make sure that they earn a good living.
Socorro, Eastlake, and America's high schools celebrated their fall festivities with their annual homecoming parades. Many participated and enjoyed the outdoor school spirit.
Very nostalgic. It's my last year, the last time I'll ever march in a parade probably. So it makes me happy knowing that I've kept doing it for 4 years.
I'm excited, very emotional because I've been in the parade like every year. And it's just exciting to see like how I started as a freshman and how my years have progressed, and like just see all my friends here and everyone else.
Have fun because school is gonna fly by, and I didn't believe that until actually right now. I remember hearing that school flies by my freshman year, and I didn't believe it, and now I'm a senior.
That's our show for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the latest in the Socorro Independent School District. Make sure to follow us on X with the handle @Socorro ISD. Also be sure to friend us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Team SISD, and visit our website. Thank you again, and see you next time.
En el distrito de Socorro, aprender es innovador.
Volamos drones, tomamos el centro de escenario, cuidamos nuestro medio ambiente y aprendemos a cuidar nuestra salud para ser mejores aprendices de por vida. Las academias de primaria de SISD ofrecen programas únicos para inspirarnos, desafiarnos y prepararnos para el éxito. Regístrate ahora y aprovecha tu oportunidad en el equipo SISD.
Hello and welcome to SISD TV News, where we deliver the latest news about the Socorro Independent School District. In today's segment, we'll take a look at stories and special events from the beginning of the school year. SISD held a ribbon-cutting ceremony to unveil SAC 2. The new stadium was built as part of the voter-approved Bond 2017 program. It can accommodate 6,500 people and will allow the district to host more games to better serve students of SISD and the community.
We wanted to have a state-of-the-art facility. We were kind of outgrowing our previous facility just with the one stadium. We're having to have games in the late afternoon and in the evening, but this alleviates that. Plus, the other one was built about 30 years ago, so we wanted to have updated facilities, state-of-the-art. Yeah, we also have a great fine arts complex within this stadium where we'll have instrument repair. Our fine arts team will be located out here. We also have conference rooms to hold staff development and so forth. So it really is more of a multi-purpose type of a complex for us.
It's all about the kids, and I think it's something that they'll never forget. This group of kids that get to play here for the first time, they're never going to forget this feeling of just being a part of this, the energy, the excitement. You know, they'll have stories that they'll be able to tell their kids, and hopefully 32 years from now, one of them will open up the next facility.
I'm super excited for what it's going to bring to us, a new home to us, a different environment. This year we're not cheering on track, we're cheering on turf, which allows us to do more skills, like more stunts and safer tumbling. But it's really exciting to have something new, and I'm excited to share it with my team.
Team SISD welcomed back students for the 2024-2025 school year. Parents, teachers, faculty, and staff were ready and excited to kick off the new school year.
I'm really excited to just kind of start my senior year. I'm really excited for all of the plans that my school does for us when it comes to like the senior sunrise, sunset, and all the things they do to kind of celebrate us for almost finishing all 4 years. I don't know, I feel like having that school pride really makes me excited to come back and overall just kind of finish my year and maybe shut off and hopefully get a lot of help with like college applications and everything too.
This school's been great to us. You know, like I said, Ian's first year was last year. It was kind of rough at the beginning, like I imagined it with a lot of folks. But no, the school's been awesome. Everybody here has been great.
Sierra Vista STEAM Academy is the second school in West Texas and one of 5 in the nation to earn the National Certificate for STEM Excellence.
STEM is where the future is going, regardless of what career path you're going down. So incorporating the science, technology, the engineering, arts, and math, and really develop those critical thinking skills, and a lot of innovative practices are really going to help students of all types of learning styles.
A lot of times students don't really want to pay attention when it's just the basic pencil and paper, but whenever I say, okay, get into groups, they get so excited. And then when they see all the materials, I can see their minds working. And seeing that gets me excited for them. And then when they're actually able to complete a task, that brings joy to my heart.
Today is a huge day. The STEAM certification, we have been on a 1-year mission, and most districts take a lot longer than 1 year, but we had a goal of trying to get as many teachers certified as possible in 1 year so that we could throw our program into a full-bed STEAM academy as quickly as possible.
SISD teachers, administrators, and staff prepared for the upcoming 2024-2025 school year with professional development conferences, spirited teachers' assemblies, and more.
We didn't hold a district convocation this year, but it's great to see the way the principals have come together to create their own beginning of year activities, bring the teachers together, learn together, again, build community, and look forward to a great school year.
The goal is to actually sharpen their skills in the classroom. Our kids need great teachers, great educators to help them succeed. And really here at the high school, it's not necessarily the end all be all because our intention is for them to go to college. But when they go from elementary to middle to high school, we need to make sure that they're prepared to go beyond high school. And it starts at the elementary school level.
Every year it's like a fresh start, so I'm always excited, especially since I teach the little ones. It's always such a fun experience to really see how they come in when they're all so scared to be, at school, because it's their first experience at school. I'm the teacher that kind of introduces them to what school life really is all about. So it's always fun seeing how they come in and then watching them grow throughout the year.
We are very excited to see our little ones this year. It's going to be a great year. We're going to learn a lot and we're going to have lots of fun.
Students from all 6 comprehensive high schools and Options High School were honored and recognized during a summer commencement ceremony.
I'm excited because, I did it. I'm having a graduation. I'm able to walk for my family and give them a nice little celebration. And it's a good celebration for me as well. So it's an exciting day. I'm just nervous because I haven't experienced it, but when I went to my friend's graduation and everything, it looked pretty exciting.
It feels very important to me. It's not something that I would brush off as it's just another thing. I also take a lot of pride in that because my family has worked very hard to get me here and to live here in America.
Team SISD celebrated the unveiling of 25 new electric school buses and charging stations with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. SISD was the only district in Region 19 to receive the $10 million funding for the buses and to build the charging infrastructure from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Clean School Bus funding in October 2022.
It was a big win not only for our district but for the community as a whole and for the environment of the planet. We're reducing the carbon footprint as we do this, and it's just a big win not only for the district, for the community as a whole.
The major benefit is going to be the zero emissions from the buses. A lot of times we have buses sitting idle in a parking lot, and you'll come across those fumes, and I think that alone is one of the biggest components here, the selling factors on these buses, benefit for our students.
I think we're very blessed and fortunate to have this opportunity because I know a lot of people don't, and I think we could use this as an advantage to ourselves to not only help our community and to help our district, but to also branch out and maybe expand this for other districts and other places.
That's our show for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the latest in the Socorro Independent School District. Make sure to follow us on X with the handle @Socorro ISD. Also be sure to friend us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Team SISD, and visit our website. Thank you again, and see you next time.
Welcome to our beautiful Sun City of El Paso, Texas. I'm Rosie Rodriguez, proud school counselor at Chester Jordan Elementary, home of the Lions. We currently serve 791 students, from our littlest Lions in pre-kinder to our extraordinary preteens in 5th grade. At Chester Jordan, we take pride in serving a diverse community with a large population of military and economically disadvantaged students. Because of this diverse community, we take great pride in providing a comprehensive school counseling program that is ASCA-based and data-driven to benefit all students' academics, college and career readiness, and social-emotional well-being. Simply put, taking care of the whole child. I now welcome you to Chester Doran Elementary, where I show you what a comprehensive school counseling program has done to the positive culture of our campus. Welcome.
Ms. Rodriguez, when I started here at the leadership team, she was one of the first ones who kind of took me under her wing. And that just goes to show that she's not just about, you know, a school counselor for students. She's a school counselor for everybody, for faculty, staff, the community. She's one of the most selfless people that I have ever come in contact with.
She is an amazing human being that truly is heart. She loves the students, the teachers, the staff. She shows it every day. I think first of all with her smile and her welcoming demeanor. She has such an amazing energy. People want to go to her.
One of my top priorities was to build relationships with students, teachers, staff, and parents to know how to best provide support. Staying visible through classroom lessons, making myself available, and providing opportunities to connect truly allowed for these relationships to flourish. And flourish they did. Providing support to students through classroom lessons, individual counseling, check-ins, small group counseling, and referrals to outside resources allowed for equitable access to opportunities that may have otherwise gone unserved. Bottom line, I want our campus to know I am here for them.
She's always in the forefront, ready to help out in any way that she can. You don't even have to ask her, and she's already ready and willing.
So there's a lot of wonderful things about Ms. Rodriguez. She's a wonderful counselor. She's always helping us in small groups, in relationship problems, and everything, in every way possible.
In an effort to address the whole child, a multifaceted campus-wide SEL initiative was established. Advocating for some of the instructional time to be dedicated to SEL time allowed more learning to happen. These lessons became the foundation of classroom expectations and behavior incentives. Becoming an SEL-focused campus brought on a culture of growth and positivity. Including all stakeholders was the next step, so we held SEL nights to help parents and the community know how to better support our little lions.
She goes beyond the four walls of this campus. She touches the parents' heart. She provides support, tools, whatever they need. It really is about, for when I think of Rosie and the way she treats our campus, it's about the whole child. And she still has that for our teachers and staff too.
Advocating for students, teachers, and parents is just as important as advocating for the school counseling profession. They truly come hand in hand. I collaborate with all stakeholders to work with and for students. In addition, I have had the opportunity to implement a comprehensive school counseling program that has been recognized several times at LASCA, as well as recently receiving the RAMP recognition from ASCA. Additionally, not only have our students and campus benefited from this advocacy piece, but many school counselors from all over the United States. I had the privilege to present to school counselors from our district, the state of Texas, and the nation. This shared knowledge will help promote school counseling programs everywhere.
I love her so much. She's really special to me. She's one of the persons that I could always count on.
Good evening, we're back in session. The date is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. The time is 8:41. And we have a confirmed quorum. Continuing with our agenda, 10A, Mr. Blanco.
Thank you, Board President Nahara, Mr. Vasquez, members of the board. Steve Blanco, legal counsel for the district. I gave you an update on the request for additional negotiation and potential resolution or settlement of former Superintendent Carmen's claims against the district. Based on our discussion in closed session, it's my understanding and appreciation that the board probably doesn't have any appetite for additional discussions and does not wish to engage in settlement discussions or negotiations with Mr. Carmen. If that's the case, no action needs to be taken. If somebody would like to make a motion to address his request that we discussed in closed session, you can do so. Otherwise, we don't take any action. Okay, thank you. There'll be no action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Moving on to item 10B1, consider approval of administrative recommendations, Director of Business Services, Mr. Vasquez.
President Nahara, members of the board, administration recommends Adriana Aguirre to assume the role and responsibilities as the new Director of Business Services.
Motion to approve.
I second.
Motion to approve made by Mrs. Gardeas, seconded by Mrs. Macias. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Congratulations, Ms. Aguirre. B2A, Waco Elementary School, Assistant Principal, Mr. Vasquez.
President Nahara, members of the board, administration is not making a recommendation at this time, and we will be reposting that position.
Moving on to item B2B, Assistant Principal at Carrasco Elementary School.
President Nahara, members of the board, administration recommends Paulina Delgado to assume the role and responsibilities as the new assistant principal at Sergeant Jose Carrasco Elementary School.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Mrs. Macias, seconded by Ms. Gardea. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the item passes. Congratulations as well. There being no further business before this board, we are adjourned. The date is January 22nd, 2025, Wednesday, and the time is 8:43.